Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is going to be a little bit different from what I normally do. It's just a chat with my old pal, Chris Thrall. He's an outside-the-box thinker. I like to think of him as like David Icke with a six-pack, right? Who does endurance athleticism, mental health coaching, and generally spins dits about his interesting life. He had a chat with me and invited me onto his podcast when I was only at about 5,000 followers. So I'm returning the favour here. He is an interesting bloke. We don't always agree on everything, and I certainly know very little about crystals and vibrations. But hey, we should all have an open mind. Russell Brand's proved that, hasn't he? 10 years ago, he was wandering around in London with his cock out and a hammer and sickle tattooed on his bird's nest, and now I listen to him nearly every day. We should always keep an open mind, and that is why I'm always happy to talk to my pal Chris. So here he is. Hope you enjoyed the chat. And if you really need to sort your life out, I think there's definitely worse people to talk to than Chris Thrall. So here's the chat. Enjoy. Anyway, I'll do an impromptu introduction just in case people don't know who you are.
Is there people that don't know who I am?
There's going to be some. But for those of you that don't know, this is Chris Thrall. He's been a long-term pal of mine because I think we first talked about 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Hey, mate, it's a lonely old road as a content creator, isn't it? And you got to stick together.
Yeah, but well, I mention you all the time on my streams because I keep saying whenever anything completely nuts happens and it comes completely out of left field and takes me by surprise, I always say to people, see, Chris Thrall was telling me this years ago, like all these sort of globalist psychopaths that you used to call them that run the world. And when we very first spoke, I was still in the sort of centrist, run-of-the-mill liberal sort of chap who really didn't get behind anything that you could call even remotely a conspiracy theory. And the last 3 years has just blown my tiny mind. And ultimately, if you're even remotely rational, you have to just open your eyes and face the mirror and look at the evidence and change your mind. So I frequently name drop you and say, well, Chris Thrall was talking about this years ago, and you were obviously right. So why don't you start with, when did you first start doing this? Because I've never asked you that, and I'm interested.
What? When did I first start broadcasting, or when did I first wake up?
When did you first start podcasting, and then were you awake when you started podcasting? Or did you just get to there gradually like me?
Yes. Well, very long story short, when I left the Corps, I went to run this quote unquote $1 million business that I'd started in Hong Kong. And within 6 months, Matt, I was chronically addicted to crystal meth, homeless, phasing in and out of clinical psychosis, AKA, madness, and working as a doorman in a nightclub, which I only found out after I got the job, was run by the 14K, who are the triad family that run the Wanchai nightclub area, or gangland, or red light district. So what happened was I was phasing in and out of psychosis over there for like 6 months odd, and nobody really knew. They just thought I was starting to behave like a bit weird. And when I come back to the UK, I should say it culminated with me trying to do the commando crawl, the one where we went across. Hey, what's all that about?
Yeah.
That one, I should say, across the, I started to crawl between two skyscrapers. So, tenement blocks, but they're 20 floors up, so they may as well, once you go above, 30 feet, it doesn't matter how high it is.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're dead either way.
Yeah, you're in dodgy territory. And fortunately, I just had like one of my first epiphanies there and then, Matt. I thought, what are you doing? And who are you trying to prove yourself to? Because you prove yourself to nobody on this planet. And that was my first epiphany, Matt. I got back to the UK. I spent 18 months in chaos, basically living on a sofa bed, tearing my house apart in an effort to like occupy my time and do something constructive. And of course, I'm I'm off my head, or they call it whizzing off your head all the time. And everything I touched turned to. Are you still swearing or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I try to tone it down a little bit.
I've been trying to do that too. I just found out my editor's been editing all my swearing out the podcast. Like,
You have to, don't you? The shocking YouTube is shocking.
oh,
Yeah.
it's getting awful, but bless him, he just knows what he's doing, does our Luke. Anyway, so I'm living on this sofa bed. The only time I can get off it, because I am in chronic depression now, right? Be honest, it wasn't, the depression wasn't fueled from a traumatic childhood, because obviously I wasn't depressed in the Marines, and I did 7 years in the Marines and operated fine, right? Although always felt a little, something, some bit of difference there. So the only time I can get off this sofa bed was when I could score gear. And because I was on benefits, 60 quid a fortnight or something, or 60 quid a week, you can imagine I couldn't buy very much. When it was gone, which was generally after 3 or 4 days, I had then another week and a half before my gyro came in. So I just, like, first of all, I'd run myself, I just would fall unconscious, just from extreme exhaustion and running out of the gear. And I'd wake up wherever I collapsed in my house. And to give you an idea, I mean, it was awful. I thought the place was infested with lice, Matt, and I took all my furniture, I burned it in the back garden, right? I can laugh at it now, and I don't regret the experience in any way whatsoever. It's brought me to answer your question now. But here's the thing. I was really unwell, mate, I've gone from handsome bootneck driving a BMW, having a, I know we're talking materialism, but I was 24, so having a mobile was like a big thing. I'm running this I was running this international business, and I'm the next millionaire in the company that I marketed products for, right? Next thing, I'm waking up in my boxers on the floor of a house that is in state, right? I've trashed it. In order to survive, I had to shoplift food. I bought all the bargain stuff in the Tesco. It was a co-op back then. In the co-op, like, I got 17p loaf of bread. Right, I'll have 2 of them. I've only got £1.87 from a fortnight shop. Right, so I'm like, right. I used to mix porridge and pasta, put it in a microwave with some milk and about 20 spoons of butter and 20 sugars, just to get the energy that I was losing by, being hyperactive.
Sounds like a civilian version of a pot mess, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The thing is, so I do understand it. I do. I think all of us, to a degree, even me, and I didn't really struggle, but I definitely look back and think I had a bit of an adjustment issue for about a year, where you just don't really know what to do with yourself when you're used to that rigorous routine that you get in the military. And I think it's very common to struggle when you leave in all kinds of different ways, and we all handle it differently.
How bad is this, though, Matt? I had an adjustment issue for probably 5 or 10 years after it, where people had to explain to me, if you have an issue with someone, you can't just punch them.
You funny
can't
old
just,
thing.
Yeah, it probably sounds crazy to our friends, watching at home, but that is your mindset. You have an issue, you go and fight it out. And in some ways, it was quite a governor, a restrictor, because it meant you had to think carefully before you said something to someone, especially if they was bigger. Now, of course, you got the keyboard, you got your anonymous avatar. You say what you want to anyone, even though they're like twice your age and they've had far more experience on this planet than you're ever going to have. But going back to me nightmare scenario, so I'm shoplifting Bovril and chocolate bars, right? I'm so stupid, Matt. I shoplifted the supermarket's own brand chocolate. I was a conscientious shoplifter. Look, I'm going to nick your chocolate, but I'm going to get the cheap stuff. All right. So and I got caught one time. And luckily, when I got to, I seen this guy following me around the shop, and it didn't click. when I got to the checkout, there was a bootneck there, or it must have been army commando or bootneck, being in the South. And he just turned around and went, mate, that geezer there's followed you all around the shop. And I looked, and it was the bloke that had been following me all around. I went, thanks, mate. I said, my love, 1 minute, I'll be back to pay for that. I legged it up the aisle, Matt, and I was like that. Chocolate bars. Chocolate bars in the freezer, bloody Bovril in the Easter egg shelf or whatever. And the guy still threw me out the thing and said, don't ever come back. I was like, yeah. Went back the next
I deserve that.
But anyway, point is, you asked me, how did I wake up? That was my first realizing that life ain't fair. It ain't what you see on the TV, or everyone's going to come and help you when you're no, everybody foxtrot Oscar, mate, out my life. And to be honest, I don't really blame them. Why would you want to be around? I was absolutely a mess, right? I was still a kind person. I wasn't, I did some stupid things, tried to nick a car once and this kind of, but I wasn't going to go out and hurt people or anything like that. I was just really struggling to make sense of this damaged childhood. And that one morning I woke up, I'm shivering in my boxers, and I did some reflecting, and I thought, Chris, stuff happens to you when you're a kid, and it's not nice. The stuff that some of us go through is just no toddler really should go through that. But here's the thing. Who's hurting that kid now? Now that kid's an adult. Oh, it's you, isn't it? You're hurt. You're sticking that, that stuff in his veins. And in that moment, Matt, I look back at going from the core to the collapse of this business, to homeless in Hong Kong, mentally unwell and working for the triads, to smashing my place up. And do you know what? I had to face facts. It wasn't working, was it? The old substance misuse malarkey. It wasn't working for me anymore. It was great in the beginning, going out, bit of dancing, bit of raving. It's all good fun stuff. Like everything in my life, I'd taken it too far. And in that moment, the light, as I burst into tears at what I'd done to that little kid, that was, that's now me. The light shone through the window, and in that moment, I realized I had to stop trying to take control. There's something bigger here. I don't know what it is. I ain't going to go join in no church or no AA meeting. There's something bigger. I got to kick back, pick up the message, and go with it. And the message at the moment is, Chris, cut down on that stuff, mate. Don't spend all your money. Just get a little bit each fortnight. When it's done, it's done. And go about your day. And the first time I did that, it gave me so much power, Matt, to just go and spend a tenner instead of spending 80 quid or whatever it was. It was just, I can do. And I woke up and I felt, I was on a come down. It wasn't nice, but I bore it out. And of course, because I hadn't done so much, I wasn't so exhausted. And so that was my first epiphany, literally seeing the light and realizing there's something in this planet that when you live, if I can use the term matrix, no disrespect to people, and now understand it's called third dimension state, low form of vibration, which is your general public, no disrespect, but, believe in that box in the corner of the room, carrying that heavy programming from our Marxist education, which
Don't
keeps you
on them.
it keeps you in your left brain, so it literally keeps you off balance. And it's not until you go east of Eden, which is allegory for accessing the right brain, that the two, they do something called hemisync, and you become a balanced human and you start to see life in a different way. So that moment where I would empathize with myself, I started to empathize with everyone else that was in pain, Matt. Not just chucking a tenner on Red Nose Day like I'd always done. I mean, actually understanding. And I knew I had to go out. Don't ask me why, but I saw an advert to go and work in Africa, in Mozambique, with street kids. And I just knew I had to do it. My family thought I was crazy. My mates like, what, you're going to work for free? I'm like, you don't understand. It's not about the money. I've this is my journey and I've got to do it. So that was that. And then, of course, my generation was the old events in New York and Washington. I'm not going to say the number.
Yeah.
And I won't, get your channel in trouble. But, oh, my God. Like everyone else, I ran with that for about 4 years. I was awake, but still really in the dark about the reality of life. And then I come across one of my university lecturers. I was studying youth work. He said, "Chris, have you seen this film that's emerged?" And it was the early days of the internet, Matt, where you had that screechy, annoying modem. You had to
Yeah.
wait half an hour to get online. And I went, and I've got that inquiry in mind. I'm on a quest now. I want to find out, why am I so damaged? Why is it when you find a little bit of information that comes from sunlight shine, it makes your life so much more sense and better? So I went straight home and I put my Pentium 386 computer on. And that's going back a bit, right?
Yeah.
And I watched this video, and in that moment, I think a lot of your friends at home know the sort of thing I'm talking about. In that moment, your reality shatters, and unless you're incredibly like naive and clinging to what you believe is you couldn't help but go, been lied to, haven't we? Been lied to on a scale that is so enormous that it shocks you to the core. And even then, Matt, you're in denial. You don't want to believe it. You're like, no, it. But there was a couple of smoking guns in that one. Couldn't deny it. Unless you wanted to lie to yourself, you couldn't. And that went on to what are we now? Like almost a 20-year adventure, mate, in the quest for what I would call enlightenment. And like when we spoke last, what I knew then, to me, is like really old school now. It's like, oh my God, did I used to think like that? Because everything you learn in a week now is as much as you learned in the previous year. It's been mental, mate.
Mad. It is mad. Well, like I said, when we talked, I'm probably, it took me 15 years to get past that. You said you were in the post-September scale for about 4 or 5 years. I reckon I was there for 15 years. Like my mate used to tell me about all these documentaries they made about it. And David Icke can send me his stuff. And I used to not even watch it. I was like, he's a lunatic. And then only after the last sort of 5-6 years, where you're just getting lied to systematically on an industrial scale, where the BBC's done it this week in one of the most demonstrable ways, where there's the YouTuber that I follow called Sargon of Akkad. You've probably heard of him. And, I've been watching him for years. And the BBC have got a disinformation reporter. So her job is to not spread disinformation, allegedly. And
Mariana.
Yeah. And she literally goes on there and I listened to his podcast and I couldn't believe it. Like, just outright lies. Like saying, on his second trip to Totnes, he was met by an angry bootneck. It's like, he didn't go to Totnes more than once. None of the people that you said were with him. None of the things you said happened. But that is a good example of what made people like me start watching this stuff, because you just realize you're being lied to and it sends you down a rabbit hole.
She's a great example of a puppet for what I call a club. That's for our friends at home. That's the club that owns everything, folks, because they've been at this. I've just done a fascinating podcast about the history of money, and it goes back to Babylon 8,000 years ago, when these guys first got together to think, right, how can we screw people over? How can we use what's called money magic to keep people in debt? This is why we got the situation now where the banks, they haven't got no gold in their vaults. They got no money in their safe. They just create, they can lend out 10 times what they have got. So the rest of it is just numbers on a computer screen. And we're the idiots that pay them interest on money that they haven't even got, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the original start of it. And then in there's a great book called 1666. I've got a copy here, actually. Really worth anyone that's interested to know why we are like in this utter craziness that we see now. It's so in 1666 you had a Middle Eastern sex cult come together with a European banking aristocracy and come together with like a quasi-Masonic group, although it's nothing to do with the Masons, but people might have heard of them, called the Torchbearers. Some people call them Illuminati. It's
like a secret society.
Yeah,
basically.
a secret society. And they sat around a table and went, right, how can we control the whole goddamn show? And you can see this now, Matt. You can see it in Hollywood symbolism, for example. So the esoteric fraternity, so the Illuminati said, well, look, we'll provide the language, where we can communicate with each other, but the general public will never get it. And even if they get it, they'll be so shocked because it's outside their reality zone, they won't believe it, right? So that's the secret communication. The bankers said, we'll practice Babylonian money magic and we will nail everyone down. Mortgages, student debt, they won't know what's hit them. They'll be so busy paying off their poxy bloody mortgages. They'll be so happy to go down the pub and get sozzled on a Friday, watch your footy on a Sunday, and then lay on on a Saturday, lay on the couch. Then they'll go back to their stupid. They'll go back to their stupid job and not even realize like we're laughing our asses off at them. And then the cult, who believe in redemption through sin, their job is to keep people from enlightenment, to keep them in low vibrational state, so you don't raise your frequency, so you don't tune in with the resonancy of life. And what that does is it means people will never know that they can't. They live in what's called the animal self, the lower self. Angry, greedy, drinking too much, overeating, jealous of the neighbor's car, always working hard at work because they want that next job, because they believe that's going to bring them fulfillment in the material, the 3D realm it's referred to. And what this cult's job is to keep people out of that at all. Say, give them crap TV, give them distractions, give them things going bang, even though when things go bang, it's not the people that they tell you, mate. It's crazy, Matt. But it's crazy. But the beautiful thing is you can transcend all this so that you're not angry every day and you're not cross at the system and you're and you get some sort of balance in your life and peace of mind. So that was a long bloody answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, so what you're basically saying is there was no, it wasn't a conversation with someone or a book. It was just you got really, really, really low, and one day you went, man, I really need to sort my life out. And then you started, right, I'm going to get fit again. I'm going to do less gear. I'm going to be healthier. And then that sort of set you on this path to trying to learn more about.
And also, out of my lifelong learning, Matt, in that kind of moment when I was down and I'm getting myself, I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm going to go on. I'm going to smash my life, This map behind me, I'm fortunate. I've traveled every single continent, 85 countries. I've backpacked through every country in the Americas, from Alaska to Argentina. I've been on expedition to Antarctica. I've scuba dived with icebergs and leopard seals. I've taught street kids in Mozambique. I've driven a bus from old school bus from Norway to India and back to write articles on people living in poverty. I've dived on the barrier reef. I've written 6 books now, I believe. One of them did my first memoir, Eating Smoke, did really, really well. What else am I saying? I'm a qualified skydiver, qualified pilot, advanced scuba diver. I've got a podcast which I love. I get to chat with people like yourself, which is just a bloody dream. It's such a cool way to live your life. And I've got the people in my life now that love me, not the people that I thought were yeah. And there's no disrespect to them; they're on their journey. But the people I've got around me now are people that I know love and care about me, and they'll listen to me, Matt. They don't call you like, crazy head and all that, because you want to discuss what's going on in the world, because it's, if you got kids, it's kind of like your duty to protect them. And I've also done some endurance stuff, haven't I? So I've just got back from the Marathon des Sables.
Yeah, I read about it. Yeah. I saw it. It's a hell of an effort, that. Like, I mean, I know it's in a bootneck's wheelhouse to do endurance stuff like that, but I remember me mate Craig Williams, who I was at 40 Commando with. He did it about 10 years ago, and he said it was the hardest thing he'd ever done. It's an absolute ball ache, that, isn't it? How far is it across the desert?
It's 155 miles, so 250 kilometers. You run a marathon a day for 7 days, and one of those days you run a double marathon. That's the easy bit. Yeah. You also go up Jebels in the desert, which from your desert experience, that these literally mountains half covered in sand. It's like going up the sand dune when you're on the beach, but it doesn't stop. One step up, slide back. One step up. And that wasn't the difficult bit. The difficult bit was 52 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees. Yeah. We're having a hot day here today, and everyone's like, this is the hottest day of the... No, we did it in literally double this heat, Matt. It was insane. Like, just spinning a little dip, which was my best part of the whole week, even though it's incredible. And I did it with diarrhea as well. Right from day one, my stomach just give out. But I was in the last rest tent, or aid tent, whatever we call it, where they hand you water and you can sit down in the shade for as long as you dare, because the clock is ticking for the cut off time. And I had about 20 minutes left. If I don't get out of here, I ain't going to get back to the finish line in time. I've got to be out of here in 20 minutes. So I laid down, I poured as much water as I could spare over myself. And then I got up and I looked across, and who am I looking at? Fellow Bootneck, isn't it?
Of course.
His name's Ash. Very nice, very, very nice chap. I think he's more your era than mine. And he just looked at me and went, all right, Ro, we're going to do this then. I said, come on, let's go. And it's just, what it's like, mate. It was just a lovely moment. We all done the commando tests, and this was just like a bigger version of that, you could say.
I think on about earlier when you were saying how you sort of spiraled downwards with this thing, I think the reason bootnecks are so much more susceptible to that type of thing is because when you do all that stuff and you pass it, it engenders a sort of confidence into you that normal people don't really have. And looking back to whenever I got in bother in my 20s, it was always, it's funny, my wife jokes about it now and says she thinks she's got like mild PTSD and she has dreams in it where something's going terribly wrong, and I'm always going, it'll be fine. Because it's like with us, you've got that confidence engendered in you where you're always convinced nothing's going to go wrong. And if it does, you'll be able to handle it easily. And I think that's where we get into trouble, because it's the same with me. It's like you always think, I can do that, easy. And then what's the worst that can happen? I'll sort that out. And the next thing, you're in a jail cell or you're in hospital or whatever. And I know tons of lads since I've left, I know definitely are higher than you'd expect, are not with us anymore. One of my best mates from training, he's dead. He drank himself to death. And another lad from 40 Commando crashed his motorbike, 28, he's dead. It's like, it's dangerous because you become confident to the point where it's actually stupid.
It's crazy, mate. I remember when I was in 42 Commando, we lost a lad. I think it was, I can't remember the exact, but it was like 3 weeks into our Northern Ireland tour, got shot basically. We won't go into the details because there's a lot of people still suffering about it. which is tells you something about our nature, doesn't it? You know.
Mm.
So he got the chap when I let his patrol out the gate, because I was manning the main gate at the time. The chap in the top sanger, that's lookout post, folks, chap called Simo. A week after we got back, and he was joining the A38 on his motorbike, and boom, he was a goner. The chap the chap I was on rear party with, very special guy, but a lot of bootnecks really are nice guys, aren't they? You know, he was on leave, running away from the police, jumped off a rooftop. He was on a night out, I should say, and there was some drunken shenanigans, and he just bolted, climbed over this rooftop, and as he jumped down the other side, he landed on a fence spike. There was, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but there were 2 lads were killed train surfing. I'm guessing they were pissed up in Thailand. They decided to get on the roof of the train, and it went under a tunnel, didn't it? You know.
Happens all the time. Mate of mine, Brett from 40 as well. He got killed in a fight outside a rugby game. It just makes you. I think it's inevitable when you take teenagers and very early 20s men and spend 32 weeks conditioning them. And at the end of it, you're going to think you're a double-hard bastard and you're basically invincible. And I remember that was when I put my chit in. Like, the main reason I put my chit in was political, because as I got into my late 20s, like, I would have been a lifer. You know, once you get past 8-9 years, you're probably doing a career. And I loved it. I left, I think I'd done 9 and a bit. And it was like, I put my chit in because political reasons. It was obvious in Afghanistan that the powers that be were more concerned about the politics than the lives of our people. And in my career, from my first tour to my 5th, the rules of engagement have got prohibitive to the point where it was genuinely dangerous. Like, we weren't allowed to kill the enemy, basically. So that was why I left. But I think that's what's going to happen, isn't it, as a natural occurrence? Because by the time I was in my late 20s, that was when I finally started waking up, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm not bulletproof. When I was 21, I almost thought I was. And I think it's a natural thing with aging. You've just got to hope that you get lucky enough to get to your 30s, because then you do seem to naturally switch on a bit more. I don't know whether it's because of your testosterone levels dipping or whatever, but it seems to me a light turns on when you get to about 30 and you suddenly go, you know what, I was kind of being a bit of an idiot for those last 10 years. It's just old age, isn't it? Wisdom.
How about this then, Matt, right? I was working in this crazy trading company in Hong Kong, but this is just like before I lost the plot, or before I really got on it, put it that way. And we used to go out, it was a crazy company. I won't bore you with the details, but it's all in my book.
I can imagine, yeah. Partying hard.
Yeah, well, what it was is it wasn't even that. It's just they employed guilos, so ghost men. That's us foreigners, right? Just for our white faces, because it looked good in this office when their foreign clients flew in from abroad to do these $1 million deals for DRAM, which is your computer memory chips. Yeah. They sold like gold back then, and they traded like stock. You know, you used to try and get them when the price was low, and we didn't. Us guilos, we didn't sell a goddamn thing because we didn't speak the language and we weren't, savvy enough. But anyway, after work, we'd go to what's called a Dai Pai Dong, which is an outdoor restaurant. Have you been in Hong Kong, Matt?
I haven't been to Hong Kong, no.
Oh, it's like the best way to eat. You're out in the warm evening, the tiger beer's just flowing, or is it beer chow? I can't remember. And they're putting these lobster dishes in front of you, and it makes English takeaway look like a joke, Yeah. But anyway, we were there, and what was I going to say? What was I going to say? We were talking about.
We're talking about how when you're young, you just take risks.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's right. We hooked up with these triad police, right? So three guys were always at this restaurant, and they're like, guys, come over. And they were so kind. I think we used to buy the beer, and they used to just put the food down on the table, And one day, one of them turned around to me and said, Quissa, this Mr. Lee, and he introduced me to this like traditional old school, like Charlie Chan era Chinese guy with the long wispy beard and the black chong som, this smart black, almost like a dress suit. And he said, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee is chemist. He want to know if he can read your hand. So I'm like, read my palm. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I gave him my hand. Can't remember which one they read, but Mr. Lee's talking to one of our hosts, and he's translating. He said, Quissa, Mr. Lee say, you are going to have some very big struggle ahead, right? He said, but don't worry about that, because when you get to 30 years old, you're going to be the happiest man you know. And I swear to God, Matt, I'm not saying I am mad. I still challenge myself. I do stupid things now, right? Made me laugh when your backdrop is a pub. I thought you picked like the worst thing. But no. But anyway, how clever was that guy? He could see me, this young gobby southern, thought I had the world at me. Well, no, I didn't. All my business had collapsed by that point. But he could tell, Matt, from my persona that I was heading for a fall and it was gonna be big. But then when I'm 30, so on my 30th birthday, having come through all the stuff that I told you, all the, the addiction and the mental illness that the doctor said I'd never recover from, I celebrated my 30th birthday on a beach in Mozambique with all my fellow volunteer workers. And they came out and they bought me this ebony statue. I think it's up in the roof. I've still got it. And mental, isn't it? Mental.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm always cynical of stuff like fortune tellers and the like, because I always think they're really, really good. Like, have you ever seen The Mentalist? Ever seen the TV show The Mentalist?
No.
Basically, he's like a private detective, and he's good at it because he was a psychic, and obviously it's all a scam. Is what he says, and he's just learned all the subtle ways to tell things about people and then look like you're talking to ghosts. And I think that's what it is predominantly. Like, to me, that's basically wisdom. I think if I met a young lad who seemed quite cocksure, you'd go with the opinion that he's probably doing a lot of booze and drugs and gambling and womanizing. Yeah. He'll probably get to a point where it'll kick him in the nuts and then he'll grow, like I think we all do. And that's what I'm saying. I think that it's normal for young men that have been rigorously trained to have this issue that so many of us seem to have, where you go through a struggle and then you come out the other end of it if you're lucky. And that's what I think. I think it's testosterone and training that makes you make bad decisions. And
you got to think of our backgrounds. I mean, why does someone want to prove themselves in the toughest infantry force on the planet? Well, in my case, it's because I was so far from enlightened, which you're not supposed to be when you're 17,
when you're 19.
Yeah, that I just wanted to prove myself to everyone. I've been kicked out of home twice by then. I was living in my Renault 12 when my mate bet me I couldn't join the Marines. I said, oh yes, I bloody can. Don't you dare tell me what I can. And it was all alien to me, Matt. I wasn't even fit. I was a smoker and everything. And even though that potential recruits course, that 3-day course just to get into training was the hardest thing I've ever done. I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give my family and friends the satisfaction of laughing at me.
You've either got it or you haven't. It's definitely an innate thing, I think, an indomitable will. I was never the fittest or the strongest, but I knew lads who were much fitter than me who joined up and fell by the wayside. You've either got that in your head or you haven't. And I was the same. I always tell people I didn't join for noble reasons. I read about the Luxor tourist massacre and I wanted to go and kill people. It was a base ignoble reason for wanting to do it, but that's why I joined. And as I said to you, it was only when I got into my late 20s that I realized that's when I started to wake up and you go, you know what? This is stupid. Like basically, I always tell everybody, I can see now in my old age that if I was unlucky enough to be born in Afghanistan, I'd be in the Taliban.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
when you're young, you don't know what's going on. You get told by your elders what's going on, and you listen to them. And when you're 18 and impressionable, off you go. And being a pragmatic fellow, I don't think it's the end of the world that we live in a military-industrial complex. Because at the end of the day, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. It does work after a fashion to get young lads from working class council estates, from the Thames and the Mersey and the Tyne, and get them in the military because it gives them some structure and some discipline. It gives them a paycheck.
In a crazy irony that, look, when I used to do a lot of military stuff on my channel, but the honest truth is, for me to win my spiritual battle, you've got to be, I've got to be true to myself, and I can't, in all honesty, let people look at me run in the desert or running a length for the United Kingdom or doing a quadruple Ironman or, all these crazy stunts I've done over the recent years. I don't want them looking at me, Matt, thinking, this guy's a Marine and that's why he's like, it's not. It's I do it because I'm me and I'm stubborn and I won't give up and I love challenges. If anything, I think there's a big danger the military really screws you up or it turns you into a bit of a pansy.
I mean, as you know, I don't. People mistake because I just called my channel what I did because I was a bootneck, but it's definitely not a military channel. I make very little content about the military because I'm basically in the same place as you. I think there's pros and cons, and you shouldn't shill for the military because this is why I'm a bit of a hippie, even though I'm a bootneck, because ultimately you're recruiting teenagers who don't know anything. And just because we have a volunteer military, our scumbag politicians think it's acceptable to invade everybody. Well, this is what I tell everybody. It's like, it's immoral. It's just as immoral as conscription, because you can't tell me that just because these 16 and 17-year-old lads are signing on the dotted line willingly, usually to get out of poverty, you can't tell me that it's totally fair and justified then to just feed them into the meat grinder, because they're just kids. And it's only when you get to the age of 30 or above that you realise that when you're 17, you don't know anything. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is, it is definitely something in that immensely complex thing between our skull that you've either got or you haven't. And we had it before we joined up. The fact that we've got it is just the reason that we earned our green lids and passed our training. But it's not the Marines that gives you it. You've either got that indomitable will in your head or you haven't. And I firmly believe that. Because as I said, there's blokes way fitter and faster and stronger and smarter than me who didn't manage it. So I think you've just got it, and you obviously have in spades, which is why you can run 160 miles across the desert with... I don't even want to know what your feet were like, because I lost 8 out of 10 toenails when I did my 30-miler. So I don't even want to know what that was like.
Yeah, I was, mate, on the last marathon, I just binned my socks, believe it or not. Your feet are swelling so much. They want room for them. They were making my feet, and everyone like, you're crazy. What, you're not wearing socks for a marathon in the desert? All this sand. I mean, you got sand gaiters on, but no, mate, I binned them. And it's the best thing I did. It was the best decision I made all week. Yes, it is funny that for damaged young men from broken homes, and that's not all the military, is it? But it is a good percentage.
Definitely.
It's better than working in a factory. It's better than being told by some dickhead boss what to do for 40 years. And I couldn't have gone to uni, especially back then. It was before this thing where like everyone goes to uni now, to get their first mortgage, their student loan, and to get their, Marxist brainwashing. It was before, I couldn't have gone to, and I was unemployed, getting 30 quid a week dole. Then I got a job in a hire centre, which I actually quite enjoyed that, fixing up the machines and stuff and delivering them to clients, this plant hire place. But I mean, come on, compared to the military where you're getting flown around the bloody world, or I sailed to Barbados once, for crying out loud. I saw active service at, like yourself, Matt, at not as a teenager, walking down the street in a major European city with a machine gun, essentially a machine gun, I was throwing myself out of airplanes at night into the dark with 60 other people. It was, I mean, you can see the appeal of it, can't you? And do I regret it? Well, of course not. Would I do it again, knowing what I know now? I couldn't do, because if they tried to ship me off to one of these, conflict, I couldn't, in all honesty, take another life. And, with the obvious exception of self-defense. Crazy is crazy, Matt, but I think it's good credit to us that we can have this kind of conversation, because a lot of the brother and sister, they're still army barmy, aren't they?
Well, I mean, like I said to you, you've got to try and be, because like I said, we'll probably disagree on a few things. I haven't gone as far into the sort of holistic sort of health stuff as you have. I'm still basically at the sort of comical amusement at how insane the world's gone and we're just being lied to constantly. But what I'm saying to you is I fully agree in that you've just got to have an open mind, and I'm the eternal fence sitter on everything.
You've like got to be.
I like that. My missus said, I'd love to do that where you just set up a table outside a university and say, let's have an argument, because I feel like, for example, I'd like to sit there and have an argument with someone about Trump and just say to them, do you love him or you hate him? Tell me which, and I'll be the opposite, because I think I could come up with 10 good reasons for and against. And I'm like that with the military. I think I agree with you in so many ways on it. And I think that if you could just guarantee that those young lads that joined up would do it for a year or two, and then, make sure they were guided by a sort of reasonable older bloke who tells them the pros and the cons and the negatives of what we're doing, you'd arrive at a better place. Because as I said to you, I can see the pros and cons to the military. I definitely wouldn't say I regret joining, but I'm glad I got out when I did, because I can't say I regretted it, because the camaraderie, it's all about the blokes, irrelevant of what the government and the politicians and the liars in the media and the globalist psychopaths do. You're with people that you genuinely care about, and you all have a great crack with each other. It's all about the lads. So I definitely don't regret joining. But I mean, you have to have a sense of humor, because like I said, I'm embarrassed I invaded Iraq. Like, I still joke about it. I wear the T-shirt because I'm ashamed that I went. There was more weapons of mass destruction under my nana's fridge, and we went to Afghanistan and killed a shitload of people. And I think, in my opinion, that's why they went after Trump so hard, because if you remember way back in, I was living over here watching the debate, he said 7 years ago or something, we never should have went. Everybody lied about it, and everybody knows they lied about it. And it seems to me that's when they made him public enemy number one. So the issue with the military is not, there's loads of good things, the camaraderie, the brotherhood and the fellowship and the physical training is good for you. The routine and the discipline is good for you. But you are just a tool for globalist psychopaths. So to me, as long as you can take all of the benefits and then ditch them, and you're almost like using them. Take all the benefits, hopefully live through it, and then ditch them at the earliest opportunity is probably the happy medium for the military, because you do get a lot out of it. But ultimately, you are just a mercenary working for a bunch of lunatics, and you have no compunction at all about lying, cheating, and stealing, and spilling blood for no reason.
I just spent a little bit, and this really kind of summed it up for me. There was a documentary on TV back when I used to watch the Devil Box, but it was interviewing the parents of soldiers and Marines that had been killed in the Middle East. And one of the interviews was in a pub with this young lad's dad, and he was just a simple working class northerner, mate. He's would have been proud as punch when his little boy passed out, with his regiment. And this guy got it enough to know that Tony Blair was evil beyond belief, and that had lied to send his son off to war, right?
100%.
And this guy was in the pub, and you could see he was battling the booze as well, and he's basically crying into his beer, mate. You know, he lost his little boy, and as a parent now, these people, they got to be reined in, Matt. You know, and the way to do it is the spiritual way. And this sounds really crazy. And if you'd said this to me like 20 years ago, I would have thought you were like some kind of hippie or something, and you love trees. But no, they play on low vibrational state. They keep people in fear. You know, they keep selling them on the lie that there's a big bad person out there and they're going to invade your country and you're all going to be dead in 45 minutes. You know, and this is why I'm so passionate about, you know, what I do and what I teach and the way that my channel's going is I get their MO. They've done this in ancient Babylon. They know what they're doing. There's that triumvirate that I mentioned at the, you know, at the beginning. Once you understand their MO, it's just so blatantly obvious how they operate. And people are like, yeah, the army's going to go in and take them out and there's going to rescue all these kids. I'm like, the army doing nothing. The army are order takers. This is the lowest form of vibration, right? I used to be, you know, we used to be the Mats. This is not a criticism in any way, but you know, it's the way forward. Is if everything in the universe is like Tesla said, energy, frequency, and vibration. That's our reality. So we, you know, I think this microphone exists, but really it's just a complex cluster of, you know, atoms held together that you couldn't see with a human eye, held together at a resonating frequency, which makes it appear that it's, you know, well, that's matter, right? Well, if life is energy, vibration, frequency, then the way to address it, if you seek change, has to be through manipulating that energy, vibration, and frequency. And that starts in here with what I think they believe they call it thought forms. You know, your thoughts dictate your actions. So I decided I wanted to come on a podcast with Matt. We've come on. We've had a highly enlightening chat. We've helped probably a lot of youngsters out there that probably hero worship the military and thought you can do no wrong, to realize no, it's can be very, very evil. And so we have physically changed, Matt, through our thoughts, the energy, the vibration, and the frequency, and there will be knock-on results, you know, knock-on results. And I say to anyone, it's scientifically proven, love is the highest form of vibration. So if you want results in your life, you need to get yourself to to that state, because the opposite is hatred and bigotry and fear and and it's not rocket science to know that people that live like that, they're not very happy, are they? You know, they're projecting basically their unresolved childhood trauma onto everyone their whole life, whether it's on a keyboard through an anonymous avatar and it's that kind of cliche, you know, what you say about other people is just that is representation of where you are. It's nothing that person's done. And it's great, Matt. It means that I don't have to like go on the protests in London, although, you know, I did do a lot of that, and you know, met a lot of good veterans up there. I don't have to like try and convince people through my YouTube channel that you got to be awake and you've got to do this and you've got to share this video and you've got to watch this video and, you know, get on Telegram. And no, I know it comes from within. You know, it starts from, you know, it starts from within. And once you understand that, it's like so liberating. You can let all the other stuff go, you know. You know, you let all the other stuff go, and everyone's on their journey, and it's a beautiful journey, no matter, you know, which way they're. Well, it's not always. It's not beautiful if you're George Bush, is it? But
You
But
sound a bit like Russell Brand there. Russell Brand's very, because he's another one, right? Like 10 years ago, I didn't like him. And now I always watch him because I think, again, I'll disagree on little things, but this is exactly what you're saying, right? It's that you're all on a journey differently. You don't have to agree on every aspect of it. You just have to be open to the idea that we're all the same in some respect. We're all related. That's not just hippie crap. That's the tree of life. It's basic biology.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be in lockstep with everyone, because I don't feel like I've ever understood any of the vibrations and some of the more deep stuff that people like yourself or David Icke talk around. But from applying the wisdom of my own life, I feel like you can get there, talking about a journey. I sort of started doing all the same stuff as you do, but just organically, because I realized that drinking too much and eating crap and watching TV all day wasn't good for me and didn't make me feel well. And then doing loads of fizz and eating clean and being healthy and having a crack with my mates and having a good relationship with my family was better for me than the former. So it's like, I think everybody's doing it their own way, but there's definitely...
What you've done there, Matt, you've just done what you've raised your vibration. Your body is a crystal, okay? It's a receiver, and the universe oscillates or vibrates at a certain frequency. If you're below that, you're going to feel bad, because your body's like a crystal. You need to tune it, just like the old radio sets, tune it to pick up that frequency. And you got to remember, 99.9% of people will live their whole life and not even understand this conversation, let alone get off the crap food and the starches and the abundance of meat and the alcohol and the bad thinking and the anger and the jealousy and and this kind of stuff. And I was just going to say to you, if you don't understand vibration frequency, how do you feel when you've been for a 4-mile run when you didn't really want to go, but you said, come on, put your trainers on, get out the door, you come back, you have a lovely shower, and you sit down and eat, a nice salad with the missus. Do you feel bad?
Feel amazing, don't you? That's why you do it.
Utterly brilliant. And that's how I feel, Matt, all the time. And if I'm not feeling it, it's like I know I'm doing something wrong, and I don't get down, I don't get depressed, I just go, Chris, get back on the horse, mate. Put the pour the beer down the sink. That's what am I talking about? I've never poured a beer away in my life. but I have before got a beer, and literally I used to have a shelf just here in front of the computer, and I put the beer there purposely, and I said, right, that bloody thing is staying there. And that was 2 years off it, mate. That was the best 2 years of my life,
Yeah. No, I think I approach it from a scientific standpoint. I remember reading Richard Dawkins' books when I was in my sort of early 30s, maybe my late 20s. And so much of it resonated with me because he explained that we've been evolving for hundreds of thousands of years. And you just have to think common sense, even if you don't know the ins and outs of evolutionary biology. You think to yourself, if we've been evolving for 200,000 years, and then only in the last 200 have we started eating high fructose corn syrup, of course it's going to do something to you, isn't it? And I feel like it's common sense. A lot of the stuff that you guys talk about with a sort of holistic approach to health does fall in line with what I would call a sort of purely sort of scientific rationalist approach to it, because it's like, of course, you should try and do what we did for hundreds of thousands of years rather than what we've done for 100, because that's what we're used to doing.
It's not even that, Matt. If you think about it, if we look now round at the same, say, just take the time of Jesus, right, or Yahshua as his real name was. 2,000 years ago, they looked just like us, didn't they? No change. So it's not a stretch to think 10,000 years ago, people look like us. So the World Economic Forum want you to believe we crawled out the African bowl 80,000 years ago. And we was all, negroid, if that, black features and all that sort of stuff. Oh, really? What I think they're hiding from us is I think we've been around for way, way longer, Matt, right? But anyway, regardless of that,
Would you say how far then? Do you think millions of years?
oh, absolutely, yes. If we are going to believe in the evolution theory, which I kind of do, but my jury's always out. You could tell me tomorrow that my name's not Chris, I'm actually called John, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that.
No, I agree. I've got a very open mind.
I'm just going to go and check that out, Matt, if you don't mind. But I'm not going to say you're wrong. I just I had this chat with someone recently. They put this big rant apparently on the Facebook page, and I'm just saying, like, don't do that. Don't say life is like this. All you're showing is like your ignorance of the fact that, like, the complexity of. But anyway, my point is, regardless of how long we've been around, but it's a long time.
It's definitely a lot longer than a few hundred years. Yeah.
We've only had tools, which started with stone tools and then went on to bronze tools relatively recently in our our life scale, if we call it evolutionary scale. For the vast majority of what I personally think were millions of years, we just had our hands to catch stuff. So the notion that you could build if you were in Europe, for example, you could build yourself a boat, out with your hands, sail across the Atlantic, then run across the savannah or the plains or the desert and dive on a cow, wrestle it to the ground with your bare hands and go, right, you're coming back to feed me family. And you get back in your boat, paddle back across, the notion that we can eat half a cow a day, and it's just so ridiculously ludicrous. You'd catch what you could get with your hands. So maybe the odd fish, if you probably got quite smart at plucking fish out the irony, grubs. Apparently you can't eat all insect life because some of it's got a chemical in it, but you can eat grubs because I've done it. I've done it in the jungle. I've done it in Africa. I've done it in China. Bought some on the internet just to show people that, yeah, I know what Klaus Schwab is saying. I'm not trying to defend that, but come on, use your brain. Why is it a baby when they see a worm crawl, the first thing they do is they try and grab it and put it in their mouth? I had one come out my nappy as a kid. My mum said it was still alive.
Yeah.
There's a dip for you. Yes.
Don't want to even go down that route.
Matt, I just wanted to say, if I've always found with YouTube, it's best to keep the videos around about the hour. Otherwise, people just don't bloody watch them. But if you want to chat longer, it's absolutely fine. Or we can do another show, mate. If when you put this one out, you're master of your own destiny, so I'm gonna.
No, we can carry. I have got stuff I can do, but I'm like, oh my god, I can talk for hours. We'll have to do this again soon and carry on.
I love the long form podcast, like the old Joe Rogan 4 hour. I love it, right? But post lockdown, people look at the time and they go, well, I'm on my way to work, so I haven't got time to watch that now. I'll watch it when I get home. And of course, what happens? They get home, life hits you like it does, and they completely forget they was going to watch Angry Bootneck chats with Chris.
So I'll tell you what, I want to ask you one thing before I go.
Of course.
So you, like I said, we seem to come at life from slightly different angles, but we arrive at the same place independently, which is obviously good for our idea that you should have an open mind. What do you think? I heard this podcast last week where Jordan Peterson was talking to a bloke who's like an expert on human physiology. And he said they've just had this massive study come in which proved that apparently if the sweet spot for exercising is 300 minutes per week. Have you ever heard that? Ever read about it anywhere?
What's that in hours? That's like
300 minutes it's quite a lot. It's about 5 hours, isn't it? It's 60, 120, 180, 240. I think it's 5 hours, right?
240 would be 4 hours. So 5 hours.
Would you think that would be in line with what your approach would be?
Listen, for me, mate, I like the easy. Despite what you've heard, like 85 countries, 7 continents, Antarctic explored, mate, I do everything the easiest. I take the easy. Why have I traveled the world? Well, I tell you, it's cheaper than living in the UK traveling, right?
Yeah, you don't have to pay council tax.
I lived for £3 a day for a year and a half, and I got my I did my advanced scuba diving course in that money, dived on the barrier reef, and I did the lesson 1 of the AFF, the advanced freefall course. So I did my first skydive, and so it was cheaper. For in Bolivia, you get a 3-course meal for 40p back when I was traveling anyway. So that was one reason. The other reason is it's better than having a job.
Yeah,
traveling the world and doing adventure sports, it's just so much. So that's why I did it. And thirdly, it's such a great way to get experience that you can then use in a podcast in later life, or writing books, or whatever it might be. So that was one thing I'll say. When it comes to exercise, so when I ran the length of the country, that was 999 miles, carrying a 15-kilo Bergen and sleeping by the side of the road, and running an ultra marathon every day, or at least averaging that. That's anything over a marathon, 36 days. I did no training at all. I think I'm a little bit of a lie. I think I ran 3 miles around my block just to see if I could. And the reason I didn't do any training, Matt, is I'd had spinal surgery. So I've been laid up for the best part of two years. And I didn't, like, when the window come of like I'd got my back better, I thought, let's just go, get yourself a ticket. John O'Groats, just go, Chris, just go. And in sort of true bootneck fashion, I looked at my compass, it pointed south. I made a quick Facebook video, and then I started running. And, that's all the training I did for that. I come last in my first ever triathlon. It was an Olympic triathlon. I come last. My little boy was on the finish line going, when's my daddy why is my daddy last? Has anyone seen my dad? They even tried to get me to like drop out because they all wanted to go home, Matt. And I'm like, look, you keep your medal. I don't care about that. So I come last, and on the finish line, I said, right. And it was hard, mate. Oh, that was hard. That cycle, 40 miles. Anyway, on the finish line, I said, right, I'll do a quadruple Ironman in 8 weeks' time. Right. And the only training I did for that was around 3 miles around the block, 3 or 4 times a week. I swam in the pool. I just made sure that I could swim long enough not to drown. And I got on the bike and I cycled out to Dartmoor twice. So that's 20 miles. Right. I then swam.
Oh, for you, that you must have breezed it after all that training.
Well, I then swam 9 miles, cycled 450, and ran a 108-mile ultra at the end of it. So I did it over 7 days, so it wasn't particularly ninja. 6 or 7 days, and I had to have a rest day in between because I had to drive up to Nottingham to Sherwood Forest, where the ultra marathon was. But I do everything easy. If you can do a quadruple Ironman with 8 weeks training, running for that, I'm going to do that, Matt. I'm going to do that. So going back to your fitness thing, all I tell people to do is jog around the block in the morning, walk if you must, or wheel your wheelchair. But if you can jog, get breathing, because breathing alkalizes your body. It naturally detoxes you. You get a rush of like endorphins when you exercise. So that's your happy chemicals. And all you're doing is mimicking what we would have done when we lived in the forest for this million years or whatever it is. Come back from that, hot shower, cold shower, as hot as you can get it, and then as cold as you dare. Doesn't have to be freezing, but you build up. Or do what I did, buy an old whiskey barrel and have it as your plunge pool. And I built myself a sauna. That was a bit expensive, but so, why do you do that? Because it stimulates the vagus nerve. Why is that important? Well, when we were primates living in the forest and it rained, we got wet. You know, unless you can
like
find
Wim Hof, right? So
yeah,
Wim Hof stuff.
it is in our, and what nature does is it cooperates, it co-ops these hardships into our well-being. This is why when you fast, rather than get ill, you get the opposite. So I went 18 days. That's the longest fast I've done. But my friend John has done 30 days, 40 days, right? This is why you see in the scriptures, you know, in the wilderness for 40 days. It's because when you do that, you become alkaline. So your body becomes this crystal I'm talking about. And remember,
There's
in
a lot
Bible,
of evidence for fasting as well.
yeah,
I've read a lot about it lately.
and you make this beautiful connection with the universe. In the Bible, they call it God, whatever people want to call it. And so, you know, that's another one. And if you think about it, our ancestors would have gone for weeks without food, moving between different gathering grounds or different hunting grounds, or in times of snow and atrocious weather or famine, all this kind, right? They'd have to be, right, folks, we're walking out of here. We can't get the bus. We're walking, and it's going to be a toughie, this one. You know, they might get some bugs on the way, and the body's so clever, Matt. It puts you on cloud 9 when you do that. So you can just bimble out of your hardship. Fascinating stuff, mate. So that's my
to answer the
view.
question, you're saying you wouldn't put a minute cap on it. You're just saying basically you want to get back to basics.
Just get out and do anything.
Something.
Do what makes you happy, you know? I get a lot of young, used to, not so much now. I get a lot of youngsters, Chris, I want to join the Marines. You know what? I've got a backpack and and I'm like, just no. They teach you that at Limson. That's what Limson's for. What you want to do is get happy being fit. Get some music on. Do what you can. If you can do, you know, a 3-miler every day or a 4-miler, and then really push yourself at the end to get your lungs, great. Better still, get yourself a rope from B&Q, stick it up a 30-foot tree, because that is where people really, you know, and make sure you can swim. Make sure you can swim, because that was the,
you know what? I think I did the exact same thing there with training for the Marines, because I always remember I was doing the same. I was doing it because I enjoyed it. I was always fit. I used to play out with my mates and that. And I was only doing like 4 or 5 mile runs like 3 days a week because I enjoyed them. I wasn't kicking the arse out of it. I was doing them dead fast, because when I run fast is when I get the rushes, you know. I used to just put my headphones on and go for a run 4 or 5 mile. And I always remember going on my PRMC and being honest with the corporal in the interview. And he said to me, yeah, okay, so you've done quite a bit of fizz, but I think you're going to struggle with the endurance course because it's a bit long, that. And I pissed it. I think I got the first or the second best time on the PRMC. Found it really easy. And I just remember giving him a wink when I was running over the bottom field to finish up. And he just nodded at me. So I think there's a lot of wisdom there as well. You don't need to kick the ass out of it, do you? You just have to, if you're happy and your blood's singing when you're exercising, I think that's the key. You have to be happy. You know?
Oh, can you still hear me? Yeah, sorry, I thought we got cut off then. Yeah, and here's the other thing. When people go, I don't like running, my answer is always because you've never run. You don't understand it. You think running is that thing you did on sports day at a kid that you didn't want to do and they forced you and you was hanging out your ass.
Go slower.
Or running for a bus. That's not what I do. You watch my, I tell you a funny thing in the desert, right? On the second day, you live in Bedouin tents in the evening, right? This couple of geezers turned up and they had the old jungle like waistcoat things on with Marathon de Sable's crew written or something. And they said, is Chris Thrall in here? And my heart kind of like fluttered a bit there. I thought, oh shit, is this like bad news from home? But I kind of also knew that I'd put down I'm a YouTuber on the application, and I figured that would pique some in. Anyway, it was the film crew, and they come around and said, look, can we make a film about you? You know, and you can talk about like being a content. And anyway, mate, they made this wicked little video of me. I was just dead. Like, they only picked 8 people out of the 1,200 runners, and I was one of them, right? But if you look in that video, you can see how slow I'm running. I'm tripping along like bloody Tinkerbell or something, you know? And that's all you have to do. Just enjoy it. I run up my city's steepest hill every morning because I love it, Matt. If I'm not doing that, it's something's not right, it means I'm probably drinking or some shit like that, and I've lost my vibration, and I'm just going through the rigmarole of get up in the morning, do some work, put telly on in it, and you just lose that beautiful spark. So yeah, that's my advice, mate. Enjoy
So
it.
what makes you happy? Yeah, fair enough. You'll always exercise if you enjoy it. Right, thanks for that, mate. We always talk about stuff that you take me places where I don't often go. We get some interesting stuff. So thanks for that. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. If there's any of our friends out there like to learn more about, you can book coaching with me through my website, christhrall.com. And believe me, I went to a podcast in London the other day with one of Dubai's top most 100 influential people, right? So I got this Dubai multi-millionaire. And when he listened to my story, Matt, he said, how much do you get paid for your public speaking? I said, I don't even get speaking gig. He's like, what? I said, oh, well, I get like 3 a year, couple on. He said, how much they pay? I said, I did a 20-minute Zoom once. They give me 1,700 quid. He says, is that all? I'm like, what? He says, Chris, you should be on 10 grand an hour and you should be fully booked up, mate. He said, most the people on the speaking circuit, they've got one story. He said, you've got like 10, right? So my point is to people listening, I don't charge 10 grand to life coach people. I just want to help, if you're on a low income, I actually charge 30 quid for the hour. And I just would encourage anyone, if what I'm saying makes sense and it resonates with you, frequency, resonant. Just get on my website and we'll have a Zoom chat, and I'll just tell you what I know and spin you a few, probably bore you with a few stories.
Well, I'll put all your details in the comments underneath the video. And I'm the same. I don't. I do try to help people out as best I can with regards to, telling them, sort your life out, eat properly, do some fit. I'm obviously much more of a layman than you, but I'll make sure I put all your comments, all of your details down below. And if you're interested in sorting your life out and getting fit, go and have a word with Chris. And
I should say, I suppose, promote myself a bit. It'd be wonderful to see some of your friends on my channel, Matt, and vice versa. If you're on my channel and you're watching this, subscribe to Matt, because he's undoubtedly the funniest person on YouTube, and he's got this articulate way with words, which is just, I don't know. I've lost too many brain cells to try and be clever these days.
Well, mine's more comical political rants than self-help, but yeah, I'll put yours down there, and anyone who really needs to get in shape, you could do a lot worse than having a chat with Chris. All right, thanks for that, mate. I'll be in touch. We'll do this again right soon.
Mate, much love to you and yours and all our friends out there. Nice
Cheers,
one.
mate. Right, I hope you all enjoyed that. Thanks for tuning in. If you are a veteran or even just a bloke that's struggling, ladies, I'm not worried about you. You guys, you're just more sensible than us, aren't you? If you're someone that's struggling, remember, like He-Man, you have the power. Keep fit, eat well, and sort your life out. You can do it. If you need someone to talk to, phone the Samaritans or just DM the Angry Bootneck. And if you really want to sort your life out, remember, I'll put all the links in the description. You can always get in touch with Chris Thrall, and he'll be happy to run you around the block a few times. All right, thanks for watching. See you all very soon. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you for a live stream on Monday.